Hi everyone, Stepan here. Today I'm going to show you by far the most painful game I've ever shown in this series, after which I quit the tournament in Pula and actually went home. I've never overreacted that much, but I had pretty bad games recently, pretty bad results, and I wasn't feeling well about my chess. I wasn't confident, and this sort of got me over the edge. I usually hate when someone complains, and I don't like complaining, but I always end up doing that. So I'll just try to objectively assess the game and tell you what I was thinking about, even though my thoughts were blurred and not really chess related most of the game. I got overwhelmed with emotions, which is never a good thing. So just to make it short, I've decided to, take at least a few weeks of playing tournaments to get back into psychological shape. So my next tournament is in about a month, and I have enough time. I'm already feeling much better, and I'm sure I'll do better the next time I play. But this was tough. Okay, so my opponent opened d4. My opponent is lower rated than me, but he's very experienced. It's an older gentleman. Okay, d5, c4, c6, knight c3, knight f6, e3, e6. And here he surprised me with bishop to d2. I know the move, but in comparison, knight f3 has been played 10,000 times, bishop d2 has been played 100 times. And this bishop, well, it's not that it's useless, because sometimes if e4 comes, the bishop could transfer to c3, but it's just not as useful as developing your kingside first. I played knight bd7, he played knight f3 now, and I had a thing here. I mean, I can play bishop d6, which is the most normal move, but a6 is very interesting, and a6, if white obliges, should give black an equal position, even with a slight advantage, because as soon as he develops this bishop, I'm going to take on c4, which is a very common theme in the Semi-Slav, and then I'm going to play b5, and when I play b5, I've already played a6, meaning that my b5 pawn is defended, meaning that I can play c5 straight away. Therefore, getting rid of my weakness on c8, my bad bishop can then be developed to b7, basically all with tempo. And then itself, a6 isn't a bad move. The only downside to a6 is the possibility for white to play c5, giving up the central tension, where white is going to be playing for a4, b4, and I will have to be playing for e5. And I don't see a way for white to prevent e5 comfortably, so I was fine with getting this position. Also, white could play queen c2 and sort of wait for me to do something, but I'm never going to take on c4 before he develops the bishop, so I would have played bishop d6 here. But he did play bishop d3, and now dc4, bishop c4, b5. He can play bishop d3, e2, or b3. And it's very different to the normal theoretical position in the Meran Semi-Slav, because we've inserted a6 and bishop d2, which in this position, a6 is a way more useful move because it has a lot to do with the position. Bishop d2 doesn't. So this is just a better version of Meran Semi-Slav. So bishop b3, usually when these two moves haven't been inserted, you continue with b4 here, chasing the knight away. But since my b5 pawn is defended, just c5. And now if this is taken, which it wasn't, I can just play bishop c5. I can also play knight c5. Both are okay. And then just follow up with bishop to b7. And they should have an equal position. But my opponent played d5. And d5 is a very committal move. Perhaps it's the best move in this exact position. However, it gives me a 3-2 pawn majority, which, if you could imagine all the pieces being traded off, I just have a better endgame. So I took on d5. He took with the knight. And now there are a couple of options. C4 is the most obvious move. On the other hand, there are huge downsides to this move. So I ended up playing bishop b7, which is fine. If I do go c4, then knight f6, of course. Otherwise I win a piece, knight f6 and bishop to c2. And now I could go queen c7 or bishop d6. If, for example, bishop d6, bishop to c3, castles, b3, bishop b7. Now the problem is with playing c4, the downsides that I mentioned. b3 is going to destroy my pawn chain. So against b3 and bc4, I would have to go rook c8 because the pawn is pinned and take back with the rook if possible. The other thing is, as soon as I play c4, I'm giving up the d4 square, which, since this bishop is kind of bad, isn't as useful because the bishop on c3 isn't going to be good behind the knight, but it's still a square I've given up. So I played bishop to b7 and just waited for things to develop. So knight f6, knight f6. He played queen e2. I played bishop e7. I could have also played bishop d6, but I didn't like the rook coming to d1, pinning my bishop. Also, there are some possibilities for bishop f7, knight g5. Not now or ever, but it's a pattern you have to look out for. Okay, rook d1, I played queen b6. These are all the most natural moves. Castles, castles. He played bishop c2, and I played knight e4. And in this position, black should have a strong edge, which I do. My pieces are extremely active, and I have a 3-2 pawn majority, and it's not really clear when and how he's going to be able to get this rook into the game unless he manages to trade some pieces off. So in this position, he played a strange move, after which the engine gives me a big advantage, but it's actually a fine move, and it prepares knight d2, which means that he's going to be able to double his rooks very naturally. I played bishop f6, activating knight d2. Now I could go knight d6, but I just took, and then played queen c6, provoking f3, which is the only move here. I wanted to provoke f3. I thought that e3 was going to be very weak. The alternative is c4, which is fine. And now that the knight is gone, the d4 square really isn't relevant. Okay, but queen c6, f3, and here I played queen e6. Again, I could have played c4. And now he played rook f to d1. And the reason I played queen e6 was twofold. I wanted to put pressure on e3, but if I go rook e8, he can just go rook to d7, defending the pawn and threatening my bishop. And also I wanted to take on a2. And in this position, there's a simple tactic, which unfortunately I missed. Or I didn't miss it, I saw it, but I played it anyway. Goes to show that my mental state wasn't really good. And I have to say, after the tournament, after this game, I started doing a lot of exercises for simple positions. I've created some checklists which I'm going over, and I'm sort of consciously making myself go through simple checks to make sure that I don't repeat these mistakes. Now, I've never made mistakes like this before. I started making them now. They're definitely not chess related. It's just that my concentration is down and that I'm afraid that I'm going to make a mistake. Therefore, I cannot play well, cannot play objectively. But I don't want to discuss that. So in this position, if I play rook d8 and he takes, I cannot take with the rook, which is obvious, because he takes again, my bishop gets to d8, then he plays queen d3, attacking both h7 and the bishop on d8, which is exactly what happened. Now, the reason why I played queen e6 is to take on a2, which I could have done. My reasoning was, okay, let's not do that. Let's just play rook ad8. Once he takes, let's take with the bishop, transfer my bishop to this diagonal, play bishop c6, then my bishops are covering all the infiltration squares for his rooks, and then I can start pushing on the king side. So for example, let's say b3 saving the a2 pawn, bishop c7, let's say bishop b2, bishop c6, he goes queen d3 for example, I can go g6 or I don't have to. I defend this somehow and then I start pushing and exploiting these weaknesses. So that was my idea. So I played rook a8, and once he took on d8, I immediately took with the rook. And this, I took without thinking, I just recaptured. And again, I just wanted to throw up. I mean, it's not that I missed the tactic, I just played it anyway. Okay, and just to analyze queen a2 briefly, I can take it. There is no downside to taking on a2. I'm just a pawn up. If he plays b3, I go queen a5. If rook d7, bishop c8, and I have a big advantage. Something like this, and I'm a clean pawn up. So I could have done that. Okay, so what happened in the game is that I allowed this. For some reason, I have to play bishop f6, otherwise I lose a piece. Queen takes, king f8. Here he played bishop b1, defending the pawn. And when I got around to actually looking at this game without feeling too miserable, I figured out that this position is actually equal. I lost the pawn, of course I'm a pawn down, but it's so dynamic with the queen and the two bishops that it doesn't matter too much. I played g6, queen h6. I wanted to cut his queen away from the queen side and king to g8. And here he played e4, which is a weakness. I have a couple of good moves here. I decided to go for queen to d6, where I'm threatening to actually checkmate him if he doesn't do anything, or to win material. So queen d1 is very annoying, followed by bishop d4. So he played queen d2, offering the pawn back, which I didn't want to take. I mean, if I exchange queens, then I would have a 3-1 pawn majority, but with both bishops on the board, I don't think it's enough to win. So takes, bishop takes. I'm not sure this is a winning position, because he also has a lot of threats, and probably this was the best thing to go for. But, well, actually, I had a very close to winning, or a winning position later on, so keeping the queens on the board was a good idea, I think. This, I'm still not sure. The engine says minus 0.7, so black should be slightly better, but I don't know. Okay, so I played bishop d4 check, avoiding the queen trade. King h1 and queen e5. Queen e5 tries to block things up somehow and transfer my queen to the king side. He played b3, I played bishop c8, which isn't too precise, but yeah, I wanted my bishop on a more active diagonal, trying to weaken his king a bit more. f4, queen h5, bishop d3, bishop c3. This is a tricky move. He cannot take because I just checkmate him. So I'm trying to misplace his queen. Of course, if he takes, then I go here. So he played queen f2. Now this doesn't lose a piece, because now on queen d1 he has bishop f1, queen f1, defending both of his bishops. So I played bishop back to b7. Since he played f4, my bishop is actually more useful here. Queen f3, of course I don't want the queen trade, so queen h4, again threatening to infiltrate, and g3. And I was really happy to see this move. After g3, I think black practically has to be much better, because white's king is very, very weak, and of course, well, f5 could be coming at some point. So I played queen e7, which doesn't threaten anything for now, but if I get to play f5, then he's in trouble. So for example, if a3, then f5 is a huge threat, and I guess he can just resign. I don't know what to suggest. Of course he can never take, he can never push, so he just loses this pawn. Doesn't matter if he attacks my bishop, I can just go here, and eventually I'll just have a passed pawn, and this pawn is going to queen. So he played what I expected him to play. He played f5, and I played queen f6. Now, if he doesn't do anything, again, let's say he plays a3, which is a stupid move, I go gf5, and he cannot take back. So again, I just have a good position. But he played king g1, unpinning, and now without much thought, I played bishop d4 check, which is stupid. I just missed my chance. I had a winning tactic here, which I didn't see. You can pause the video and try and find it. It's really not hard. When I looked at the game for the first time, I went through the game on the board, and this position arose, and I thought, okay, yeah, but this is winning. Why didn't I play this? And I couldn't remember my thought process at all. At this point, I was just thinking, okay, don't lose, you're an idiot, you blundered the pawn, you keep making blunders, don't lose. And that was going through my head. And also, I don't want to play anymore, I don't want to play this game anymore, I want to go home. So just completely wrong. I mean, nothing chess related went through my head. Which again, it's very hard to talk about that, but I want to be honest and try to justify very poor play. So yeah, the winning tactic is of course gf5. ef5 loses the queen, which is obvious. Queen f5 loses the bishop, which is also obvious. There's no calculation involved. There's absolutely nothing. And the worst thing is that I'm the one who set up these threats. I'm the one who played queen e7 and queen f6, and I just didn't go for it. And after bishop d4, white is better, because now his king came to the center. He weakened my king a bit more. And after bishop f4, I just, well, allowed him to win the game pretty easily. Of course, I shouldn't trade pieces, but I played queen d6. He took, I took, he played queen f4, and I took the queen. I mean, that's just... I remember a friend of mine had a league game. We played a league game, and he was in an endgame very similar to this, where he was a pawn down in a bishop and queen endgame, and he offered the trade of queens. And I was so mad at him, because with the queens on the board, it's very easy to draw a position like this, or your drawing chances are actually huge. With the queens off the board, it's such an easy win for white, which of course I can see, and I see it here, but I took the queen, and now of course I'm completely lost here. This is just game over. There is nothing I can do. Yeah, this is... I don't have to show this anymore. I'll just show you how the game ended. I tried to trade off enough pawns so that somehow I may be able to trade one of my pawn for one of his pawns, my bishop for the other, and draw because it's a wrong colored bishop. But that's not going to happen because he has two connected pawns. And yeah, in this position I resigned. He's just going to make a queen or two queens, and I'm Zugzwang. So yeah, I don't want to talk about this game. I want to forget this game. I think I had a very good position before I blundered. This position, this is an extremely good position. I have no weaknesses. Black has two weaknesses. I can win one straight away. I don't know. I mean, if I were calmer, if I was able to reset after the bad results I've had recently, I am sure I would have won this game. If you showed me this position unrelated to my own play, I would say black has to be much better. And I would calculate queen a2, I would see that it works, and I would play it, and then black has a 3-1 and just wins. But yeah, okay, my next tournament is on August 13th, so I have enough time to work on my mental state, which, as I said, has already improved significantly compared to this tournament, and I'm sure I'll be much stronger than this. It's very tough to deal with the fact that I lost all of the rating points that I won while I was playing well recently. I'm back below 2000, I'm 1990, which is again tough to digest, but I'm going to get those points back. Thank you for watching. Sorry for such a poor game. There will be more of them in the future. I'm sure this is going to happen another 50 times. I just have to learn to deal with this. It's going to be up and down, and the one thing I'm sure of is that I'm not going to give up, which means that I have to improve, which means that I should stop complaining and start working. So yeah, thank you. I'm going to sit down at the board and work now. Stay tuned for more chess. Bye bye.